Welcome to the Two Act Podcast, where we cover all things anime, cinema, and TV. I'm one of your co-hosts, gothjon, and who else am I speaking with?
I'm your other co-host, Adi.
Okay, all right. So we are going to cover Barbarian 2022, written and directed by Zach Krieger. So I have this intro that I wrote. So imagine you got an Airbnb, and then when you show up, someone's already there. You think that's kind of weird, but you go with it. And then when you wake up, a nightmare is unfolding in the house you fell asleep in. Bum, bum, bum. So, Adi, what did you think about Barbarian?
The main thing I learned from Barbarian was how to put a duvet cover on.
I've never even seen
Let me
a
tell you.
duvet.
Let me tell you, that is the most efficient method. No, I'm just joking. It was funny though when he did it, when he did that. But no, what I thought about it, I thought it was a really enjoyable horror movie. Obviously best watched blind without knowing anything. I feel like I enjoyed like the first half of the movie a lot more than the second half.
Okay.
And I think it was a really cleverly written misdirection that subverts your expectations and then goes off the rails in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it had some cool performances. The main three actors, Bill Skarsgård, Georgina Campbell, and of course Justin Long was so nice to see Justin Long in this, because I swear like he's just disappeared from the scene ever since, like, you know, he was everywhere.
He's been in stuff. He was in
but
Goosebumps. He was in that. He was pretty good in that too. There's a TV show.
Yeah, but I feel like he's like kind of, you know, he used to be more of a
He was like a comedy
regular
actor.
figure. Yeah, and I feel like he kind of, I don't know what it is, but
I blame Tusk.
Kevin Smith. Yep. Right. No, yeah. I thought it was I thought Barbarian was interestingly paced and distinctly divided into three parts. But I liked the premise, and it was impressive how they shot this film for like $4 million.
I agree.
It's pretty crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I found out it was filmed in Bulgaria. That was pretty interesting. You couldn't even tell.
That bit got me by surprise. I did not expect it to be filmed in Eastern Europe. I mean, obviously, that whole neighborhood where she lands up in, it's just completely decaying. Houses are all dilapidated, but this one particular house happens to be, you know, it's not bad. It's a pretty nice, modern, well furnished house. You know, it's kind of what you expect with an Airbnb. And as the premise of the story goes, she ends up there on like a rainy night, where with nowhere else to go, and turns out that someone's already in there, and it's a bit of an awkward situation because she's like, you know, obviously it's raining like crazy. It's late at night. There's nowhere else to go. So she's in this really tough spot where she has to like make a decision, and turns out the guy inside, you know, tries to convince her to stay and come in, and then, you know, just progresses from there. But I really enjoyed the tension in the first 40 minutes. It was so unpredictable, and Bill Skarsgård showing up. I mean, he's been in a lot of great stuff lately. I mean, he's kind of becoming a iconic figure in the horror genre. He's in this. He's also Pennywise the clown in It. He's also going to be in Nosferatu. That's going to come out this month, which I can't wait to watch. He's gonna play Count Olaf. So when I saw Bill Skarsgård in this, I was like, wow, okay, I'm down. I know he's gonna have a presence in this show. There's something about the way he looks. He's got a really distinctive looking face that can unsettle you. And I don't know if it's his eyes or if it's his look, but when you see him, you just know, like, okay, he's being a nice guy, but what's his real intention? Then you're just waiting. You're just waiting to see, okay, when's he gonna,
Be a
pop out?
murderer.
Yeah, be a murderer, be a creep. I don't know.
Right.
But it's like it's an awkward situation because he knows, like, okay, she's, obviously a woman on her own. Who in the right mind would want to share a house, a Airbnb with a stranger? But he tries his best to, like, make her feel comfortable, and he does anticipate her recent anxiety, but it's still so tense in the atmosphere of the film for the first 40 minutes, because you're thinking this could go anywhere and anything could happen. And I really like the setup for that, for the first act, really.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, the movie kind of sets you off kilter. Like, you get some straight up, like, romantic comedy scenes in that first 40 minutes. And it's, like, kind of odd. And, like, I understand where Keith, Bill Skarsgård, is coming from, like, his character. Like, I would understand, like, I would try to make her feel as comfortable as she can be in this situation. If I personally was a woman and I was in that situation, I'd like to think I would have just got the hell out of. I just would have kept driving. The movie
Absolutely.
really doesn't go into overdrive until you find out what's in the basement. And then it goes super crazy awesome. And, like, I really like the atmosphere, like you were saying. It's just, like, really eerie, really creepy. Like, the score is really it's really accompanying the scenes very well. Like, it really puts you on edge. Like, this movie really makes me feel anxious for sure. What do you think when they finally start going into the basement? What were your thoughts of that?
Well, before we get to that, I wanted to, like, talk about a bit more on the first act, because I feel
Oh,
like
sure. Yeah,
there's so much, like,
a lot.
interesting stuff happening there,
Mhm.
which
Like the
it just,
tea.
like, yeah, the bit where, he offers to make her tea, she refuses to have it, and then he's kind of, like, pushing the wine bottle a bit too much, which kind of gets you, like, on edge, because
It's like he trying to
why is
date
he
rape her. Like,
insisting?
what is going on?
I don't know. But you could see, like, they don't exactly get off on the right foot, but turns out he does have proof that the Airbnb booking was uh done,
Double booked.
double booked. And the landlord was, yeah, probably a dickhead who, you know, didn't give a shit or whatever. But what's funny is, like, they really hit it off, which I didn't expect. So there's a bit of a twist there as well, because you're
Mhm.
thinking, okay, there's gonna be, like, maybe a intense relationship for whatever period they're gonna be in that space. But
Mhm.
they actually hit it off. Turns out, she's in town for a job interview. She's a filmmaker, documentarian,
Mhm.
or she's interviewing a documentarian, something
Yep.
along those lines. And the subject matter that she's trying to apply and research for happens to be something that Keith is part of. So
Mhm.
they really hit it off there. And what are the odds of that happening? Because
One in a
you
million.
don't see, yeah, you meet a stranger and coincidentally they happen to, like, share the same interests, and he's like, yeah, you should interview me because, I know these people that you're trying to make a documentary on.
Mhm.
And then you can see there's a bit of, like, tension, like romantic tension.
Right.
uh yeah, he washes her sheets, and but the thing really starts when, okay, so they do that. They have they end up like drinking after all.
Mhm.
And then she goes to bed, everything's fine. She locks her door, I believe.
Yep.
But then mid asleep, so this is what I didn't expect. So she was
Mhm.
sleeping, and then her door starts to like open up
Yep.
and screech. And then
Mhm.
when she wakes up, she can see Keith on the couch in the living room, whimpering and having a nightmare. And
Yep.
at this point, I was like, "Holy shit, what's going on? Like, is he possessed? Is he like part of this house? Is there like an entity that's controlling him, and that's what it is?"
Mhm.
And then she goes there and startles him and wakes him up, and
Yeah. He's like, "What the
he's quite
fuck?"
yeah, he's quite upset about it.
Yep.
And I think like, yeah, she's obviously like, "Oh shit, like I don't know, like you were having a nightmare and my door was open." And
Did you open my door?
yeah, it's a
He's
bit
like,
of an
"What the fuck are you
awkward.
talking about? I didn't open your
Yeah, it's
door."
super awkward, and I think I really liked the social commentary in those 40 minutes, because it's
Mhm.
like, again, these are issues women go through. They have to be really vigilant and
Mhm.
aware of their surroundings, and
They do.
aware of who they interact with, especially with men.
Mhm.
And I think Zach Krieger does excellently to try to make the most of a very awkward situation. So at
Mhm.
this point, I'm expecting, okay, now the film's gonna go and really reveal its true intentions with the horror. But then it kind of subverts your expectations again, because then it cuts to the next day.
Mhm.
And when she wakes up, turns out he's already gone. And then
Oh,
she decides to go for this interview. And that's where, person interviewing her is like, "Oh my God, like, why are you staying there? Like, leave." And then that's where she
right.
sees
That place is a
her neighborhood.
shithole.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if I was her and if I saw that, I would not stay there.
Right.
So I
Oh, and the
think like,
homeless guy that runs at her too.
yeah, when she comes back, there's like a homeless guy who like tries to like chase her, and it's obviously one of those classic horror tropes where
Mhm.
the creepy guy or whatever isn't actually the creepy guy, but he's
Right.
just trying to help or whatever.
Mhm.
And then she goes in the house, and that's where things get interesting, because at that point you're like, okay, what now? And then she ends up going down to the basement because she's out of toilet roll.
Yep.
And
Spoilers, by the way.
this is where the film like goes into second gear.
Yeah.
And he she finds like this doorway that leads into like a room,
Mhm.
which she pulls like a rope, and it opens up
Yeah.
a
Secret
wall.
entrance.
Yeah, a secret door on a wall
Mhm.
in the basement. And then it's so fucking creepy because she walks in, and there's this room with like a rusting bed with like a bloodied mattress and a camera
Mhm.
on a tripod that's, you know,
A la snuff
rust.
film.
Yeah, and the walls got like a bloody handprint on it, and you're just
Mhm.
thinking, "Oh my God, like what is this?" Uh, at that point, I was like, "Shit!" I mean, I don't even know what to expect, because up until this point, I was expecting something with Bill Skarsgård's character being evil or some shit. But turns out he comes. Turns out she gets locked in there and she can't get out. Her phone's in the hall. And then she gets saved by Keith, who luckily comes back and sees her in the basement through the window.
Mhm.
And then when he tries to help and he goes in, I was like, okay, now it's gonna be where he's gonna reveal that, he's luring her in or whatever. Boy, was I wrong about that.
Was this is that the moment where you're like, "John, what the fuck did you make me watch?"
Yeah, pretty much. Because when I saw that creature bashing
Yeah.
his head, and
the titty
killing
monster.
him there. Whatever. The mother, apparently.
Yeah.
I did not see that coming, and that was a huge, like, yeah, they definitely pulled the rug out of the viewer at that point. I didn't expect him to get killed off. I was quite annoyed in a good way, because I was like, damn it, you just, I thought this guy was like, I was convinced this guy was evil or whatever. It turns out he actually was a good guy, but he just gets his head bashed in.
Right.
So
brutal.
This is like, I think, the height of the tension in the film for me personally. Because at that point I was like, fuck, like, this fucking creature is in, because they're in the tunnels, they're in this cavernous space, going deeper underground from that room with the bloodied mattress.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking she's fucked. Like Tess, played by Georgina Campbell, she's pretty much fucked. But that's where the film kind of takes a pause, and then we're shown another character, and it cuts to a bit of a relief with Justin Long. Turns out he's the actual owner of the house, but he's also a Hollywood sort of sitcom actor. And he's enjoying his drive, and he gets a call that he's been charged, or there's been sexual
he's getting Me Too'd.
Me Too. Yeah, it's a very Me Too
Yeah.
moment where he's getting allegations of rape and sexual assault by a co-star.
Yep.
And shit hits the fan for him. I did not expect them to cast Justin Long to play such a role, like a complete asshole in a way. He's obnoxious and against the type, but I thought he excelled in that role.
He did an amazing job.
He was so, like, mind-numb, deadpan, and like mind-numbingly funny, and lacked awareness of anything that was happening.
Okay, I'm gonna get murdered.
Everything building up to him going to his house in Detroit is just like, so he's in a financial pickle, obviously, and then he has to scrounge up any assets he has, and
he won't be able to find work.
And he needs to fight this lawsuit, and he's convinced that he's a good guy, and the only option he has is he has to sell this house to liquidate any assets to have any chance to survive. And I think, I did not expect a change in the second act like that.
Right.
But I found it really intriguing. It definitely made me more curious, and I thought it provided like a good sense of relief in the tension, because it kind of ends the first act in a cliffhanger. But yeah, what did you think of that whole break from pacing wise?
I liked it. It was kind of jarring at first, but then you kind of get set into it. Yeah, I think totally. Generally horror movies need to take lessons from this film. Like, it really keeps you on edge, and you don't get jump scared. When you see the monster show up, it's startling, but it's not like a loud alarm clock sound. When it kills Keith, it just hard cuts to AJ Justin Long driving his car, and you're like, what the fuck? And then you kind of get like thrown into like what's going on, and then you find out, like you're saying, like he owns a house. You're like, oh, this is where he ties in. And then when you finally get to him like measuring the basement, I remembered that scene the first time I watched it. Yeah, it was amazing.
It was too funny. Yeah, it's just comedic genius is what it was.
Yeah, and it makes sense when you think about it, because Zach Krieger, he's originally on a sketch writing troupe called The Whitest Kids You Know. They're on IFC and I think Fuse and like the late 2000s. And I remember watching a lot of their stuff. Like, they got a a lot of dumb jokes, like something like Kid Beer or the Nerf nuke, or like in a sniper shooting somebody, and then like somebody in like a building, he's like shooting him back, and then there's like a guy like trying to like quit his job or something, and he's like, hand me ammo. It's like a lot of like this sarcastic humor, and it really shows like in his writing when you get to that tape measuring scene where he's like trying to find out his footage. He's trying to see if
Yeah,
he
he
can like,
just
add it in there.
he just plays like the ultimate Airbnb owner, right? Who thinks,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
I just add like more space into this property, and will it
right.
drive up the value more? And it just
Hell
gets
yeah.
it just gets funnier and funnier because he's in the room with the bloodied mattress and the camera, but
Doesn't
he's
even
like,
see it.
yeah, doesn't even give a shit. He's just he's just so tone deaf to his surroundings.
Mhm.
It's so fucking funny. It had me laughing so hard.
Mhm.
He's entering like the extra tunnel that leads down to another one, and you're just thinking, like, this guy is just going with it. He's not even stopping once to be like, okay, this is like kind of creepy and not
He's like
fucking
not
normal.
scared at all.
And I was just thinking, fuck, like the creature would just like show up and kill him at this point.
Right.
It-
And
it does-
you wouldn't feel any remorse for him because you feel like he kind of deserves it.
oh yeah, he's a total douchebag, and I think this is where they I think they wrote his character really well because the thing is he's kind of like a douchebag who thinks he's a nice guy who thinks he's made a mistake.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case. There's a lot of similarities with, I think, the social commentary on the film. There's a
Mhm.
lot of similarities between his character and the Frank character because they're both like, preying on women in a way.
Right.
And I think idea wise, there's some interesting things being written about what these characters represent. And him, like when he meets up with his friend, he's like framing it in a way that he didn't really do anything wrong and that it
Right.
was
And then he
consensual.
gets drunk and calls her back and apologizes. He's just like fucking like in the event that he survives this night, he's just gonna be fucked
Oh
financially.
yeah, like regardless of how this goes down, it's not gonna be a win for him. And
No.
I think like like I said, he lacks any self awareness,
Mhm.
and it just makes him a really obnoxious character. But that's where it's also the funniest because I did not expect like the film to have humor in it, so that took me by surprise. And
And
up
it
until
meant to be funny, and it wasn't like something that you weren't supposed to laugh at.
yeah, and there is a lot of humor in this film. Like I was laughing even at moments of like gore and horror, which were like you know like seeing his eyes get crushed out.
Yeah, no, and
Stuff like that.
when
'Cause you're
the
like,
monster's like feeding him breast milk.
oh yeah, that's so fucking gnarly.
Yeah,
That
I was
whole
laughing
fucking
just the idea of it.
oh, it was fucking gross, especially when he falls into that trap and he's rescued by Tess, who
Yep.
somehow survived. It's been like what 2 weeks?
Yep.
I don't know how she
She's
survived there.
surviving on breast milk.
I don't want to even think about it.
Yeah,
But it's so
pretty gross.
like they did good with the props because that bottle kind of looks like a comically oversized nipple with like hair on it.
Yeah,
And it's so
no, it
fucking
looked
gross and crusty and
pretty
oh my
disgusting.
God. It was I was just like, this is so gnarly.
Yeah, I thought AJ got what he deserved, and the world of hurt that comes his way was warranted. Whether or not he did that to that poor woman, who knows? But the horror that he got to endure
Like,
was Totally
the
worth
thing
it.
I don't understand is like, so amidst him being like taken, I think Tess finds a way to escape
Yep.
and get out.
Well,
But
because she just decides to climb out
yeah, she's like,
because
yeah,
the mother leaves it open. The
yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah.
the
So
grate.
it's like the perfect opportunity to escape. But what I didn't get was like, maybe it's because, you know, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but like her character's so altruistic, she decides to like actually try to get help and save him.
Yeah. And then the
But I
cops
think
come. Oh my god, that scene was
ah,
ridiculous. The
it's
fucking Detroit cops do not give two shits because
don't
she
give two
looks like she's
shits.
homeless. She looks like she's dirty and gross. So,
She's like a
I
drug
guess
addict.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. You could give
deluded.
them the benefit that you have ID. No, I don't. It's in the house. And they're like, if you break that window, we're going to have to arrest you.
Yeah. Yeah, that was it's so comical, and I think it was also like satire as well, because like obviously the way the cops are represented are definitely not uh helpful, and I
No.
think a lot of people,
No, it's a horror movie
cops
trope.
and cops, yeah, I think this is where the director knows how to, I think he does well with uh using horror tropes
Mhm.
in the film, and I think, you know, the first act is more unsettling, the second act is more shocking.
Mhm.
But I think once the reveal is made and once we get, so the problem I had was like the cockpit was great. You know, you expect them not to help, and even if
Right.
they do, they're not really going to stand a chance, but it's typical that they
No.
wouldn't. But the film then takes another break in the narrative where
Mhm.
it goes in a flashback that
Mhm.
shows you the original owner of the house. And I think it was flashback into the 80s or the 70s. I couldn't
Yeah,
tell
I
for
think they're
sure.
like the 70s.
It kind of had that sort of technicolor vibe
Yeah,
to it.
and then the aspect ratio changed as well. Like it's 4 by
True,
3.
true. And you see Richard Brake, who's kind of like a character actor. You know, he's known to
Mm.
do like a lot of like creepy roles.
Uh,
Because he's got like a creepy
that
face.
look.
He's got that look that Bill Skarsgård ironically has in a
Mhm.
way. And he's like, yeah, it basically shows that he uh, ducks women, preys on women, and then, you know,
Im
captures them and keeps them
impregnates
hostage.
them, and then, you find out he's the father,
Yeah, and that's
and that's
pretty.
it just gets squirmy and just
It
gross
gets
feeling.
it. Yeah, it gets into an incest sort of storyline, and that's where I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm enjoying like another break in the narrative, because it's like you're giving us a second, you know, like a flashback to show
Okay.
us what, you know, giving us again context behind what's happening, and I feel like the surprise, the reveal is shocking for sure,
Mhm.
because obviously it shows like how fucked up he is and what he's created. But I feel like there's the return after that between both those characters kind of like gets subdued a bit. And I was
Yeah, I
expecting a
could see
bit
that.
more. I was expecting something a bit more in the third act, more than that. Because apart from that, Frank's purpose is just to kill himself. Like when
Mhm.
AJ gets into that room where he meets Frank, who's
Mhm.
basically on his deathbed, and shoots himself, you get to AJ discovers all
The
those tapes of
tapes, yeah.
all the, and it's such a horror movie thing where you see
Yeah,
tapes with
I
the
paused it,
titles.
read all the tape titles. There's like fat chick, and then there's like a bunch of like things that you would believe that he would write, like counter lady, screams a lot. You're just like, okay, okay,
Yeah, yeah. There's yeah,
won't stop
and
crying.
and then at that, I kid you not, man. At that point, I was expecting when like he was reaching out for the gun. I was
Mhm.
expecting another fucking monster to show up.
Oh, like another mother,
Troglodyte.
yeah,
Yeah,
like
another like
offspring.
something.
Yeah, I know. I
Yeah.
definitely could see that too.
But instead what we get is he shoots himself, and that's about it with his storyline. It kind of reminded me of Don't Breathe. I don't know if you watched it.
I'm sure I have. All horror movie titles kind of just mesh together for me now, though. Like Don't Talk to Me.
Yeah. They're, I guess,
Let the Right One In. You know, they have
so
these
many
like generic titles where you can't remember. Did I see that? And then you'll like begin to watch like the first 15 minutes of the movie. You're like, oh, I've seen this. We can turn this off. Like Malignant.
Yeah, no, it was Malignant. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common comparison to this film, but also Don't Breathe, because similarly about like these characters who get trapped in this blind man's house. It turns out he's a rapist who inseminates girls. And it's similar to this, where Frank is kind of like that. He's a rapist. He's a PDF file as well, because it's implied he even rapes their offsprings. So that's obviously fucked up. And he just shoots himself. He doesn't really say a word or anything. But there's obviously it's at that point where I was expecting more from the narrative. And it's that point where the film really goes off the rails, but in a good way off the rails. Like it is batshit crazy what's happening. But then I felt like that's where like the director really follows a lot of the tropes. And at that point I was expecting something different. So obviously Tess escapes, but then chooses to go back to danger. The creature
She's
supposedly
the final girl. She has to.
Yeah, the creature, the mother seemingly gets killed by Tess with the car being run on her, but she somehow manages to escape. AJ accidentally shoots Tess and survives. The black homeless guy plays the classic, hobo who's actually a good guy.
Right.
that gets killed off. He warns her that they're only safe
at the water tower.
Yeah,
and that's where the water tower. And then he's like, I've been safe here for 15 years. And as he's saying that, the creature comes out through the wall and like rips off his arm. And that's when I'm laughing really fucking hard.
Yeah. That bit was fucking ironic, because everything about that was ironic. And then
it leads, ironic. It's great.
It just leads to Tess. That whole bit where AJ like tosses her from the water tower, and then the mother like tries to save her, and she just fucking hulks out at this moment. So I didn't see that coming. I didn't see her like turning into She-Hulk and like getting crazy superpowers and like bashing through things and being able to like have insane superhuman strength.
Tard strength.
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. At that point, it got a bit goofy for me personally.
The whole movie's goofy. The horror film.
No, I don't.
You have to like set your disbelief.
No, I disagree. Yeah. No, I disagree. I think the first 40 minutes. I think the first 40 minutes is really realistic in its depiction of tension and the situation it creates. But then it abandons that for a more off the rails horror story that gets a bit crazier and crazier, to the point where that's where you kind of have to suspend your disbelief. So that is what was frustrating, I guess, for me, because I was like, the expectations I had after the first act, I was really like unsure what to expect, because I kept thinking I could guess what was going to happen. And then obviously the shock is surprising. But then once you get the reveal of what they are, I feel like you don't really get much out of these characters, which I wish it kind of should have had a bit more of a rewritten ending, where things could have been, I don't know, tied down a bit more closely.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, it sort of ends with her like toss AJ selfishly. Again, I think I love the characterization of AJ. Don't get me wrong.
He's a fucking idiot and a prick.
He's a fuck. He's a fucking idiot. He shoots her. She still goes back to save him.
Yeah.
And then he just decides, yeah, I'm just gonna toss her over.
Right.
And then
Because he knew that the mother would want to save one of her quote unquote babies.
it was funny at that moment. I laughed so hard because it kind of reminded me of a scene in one of the Fast and Furious films where
Oh no.
Vin Diesel literally jumps out of a fast supercar and he picks up his girlfriend who's flying midair and he holds her and he like protects her by taking the damage on his back in the pavement and survives.
The fuck?
Yeah. I think it was Fast and Furious 6, if I'm not mistaken. I laughed
If you
so
can keep
hard.
those straight, I'd be impressed. I can't tell you anything that happened after the second one.
I kid you not. The only reason I remember this is because it was so fucking funny and goofy. Like it was just like completely disobeying any laws of physics
Yeah.
when that happened. It was one of the most funniest, like, you know, fuck ups I've ever seen trying to like it's this lazy attempt to like show, oh, like this is how you can save a character. But I'm not saying that what Barbarian does with that scene is
I think
is
they should
lazy.
sort
I'm
of
just
let them
saying,
both die. I think that would have been fine.
yeah, I didn't like how she takes the damage, saves Tess,
Yeah.
but then she gets back up again, kills AJ by crushing his skull, poking
Right.
his eyes out. But then she gets killed by a bullet. That kind of didn't make sense to me because
Still human.
you're basically telling me this creature can get hit by a car, can survive a two-story fall,
Yep.
but will get killed by a bullet.
That's another horror movie trope. The monster gets back up.
And when Tess gets hit by a bullet, she survives.
Oh, you could get lucky.
Yeah, true. It could be a
Yeah.
flesh wound or
Or a
whatever, but
graze or where the wound looked like it was like in a place that you could like if you got medical attention soon enough, you'd probably be fine.
yeah,
If it's
yeah,
like in
but
your
she
gut and
doesn't.
not in your like your rib cage.
Yeah, no, totally. I guess like what I'm trying to say is like ultimately the characters are smart when they need to be smart and they're
Right.
dumb when they need to be dumb. That's what I
Yeah,
got out of the film.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, which works, and I think the truth is for horror movies they need to get characters at a certain point in the story to do things a certain way,
Right.
and not all of them can write elegantly enough around that.
Mhm.
Like some obviously are not going to be able to, get away with being as stylistically, be make it look as convenient as some other stories have. Sometimes, they just have to do things that can be a bit jarring or
Mhm.
can look out of place. But I think, I'm not gonna say that it's bad writing because I don't think this film has bad writing. I think
Mhm.
it's written really cleverly, and I think it's impressive for like its budget, what it achieves. I just mainly felt like the third act could have been a bit better for me. Like I was expecting
Okay.
more. My expectations were driven up. So, it's a personal thing. So it's not me saying the film's bad or the ending's bad. It's
Right.
just my expectations were a lot higher after what it set up. So like first 40 minutes were more unpredictable to me than the whole reveal
Yeah.
bit. That's what
Yeah,
I thought.
I could definitely see if instead of doing another like cut where you do like the history of the PDF file, like if maybe you did like some like subtle clues and like maybe they find him in the tapes instead and like you could
Yeah, yeah.
like have like a standoff there and Tess would obviously either run away or kill him.
Probably. I mean, I think that's where I was reading that Zach Krieger was
Mhm.
apparently inspired by a book.
Yep. Yeah, watched a couple of interviews. He was talking about this book that was written, talking about how women have to deal with different situations than men do, like in
Yeah,
fear,
and
and
how
it
they need
definitely
to
shows.
not sort of they need to trust their intuition
Mhm.
over the red flags.
Right. Like
Uh,
as like a
and I think
guy in a lot of situations, like in that 40 minutes, we would have like, oh, what? There's nothing to fear. It's not. It's whatever. Just go to sleep. You'll be fine. Just keep the doors locked.
yeah, pretty much. And I think
Yeah.
that that bit that's where I think he gets the main premise of the film from, which is really clever, by the way, because
Mhm.
uh, like I said, the whole casting of Bill Skarsgård as Keith is a genius move because you just don't see it coming. Like even till
Right.
the point where he's calling out for help, you think, oh, like
It's a
he's
fake out, and
probably
he's the
it's a
monster.
fake out. He's the monster. There's something not straight about this guy, and
Mhm.
turns out, he was a nice guy. He did, anticipate her recent anxiety about being in a house with a stranger, a man, that too. And he did try his best to like make her feel comfortable, and they did get along. But also, you got all these other events that take place that kind of make you suspect that it's not necessarily true until it is. So that whole misdirection in the script is great. And then, of course, I think I also I did enjoy the tonal shift to Justin Long's character, because I think it does add much needed relief from the tension, and it adds good context to the
Mhm.
script, because that's where you get another character come in and you're exploring how they're connected to this story.
Mhm.
Uh, but I guess like Tess being a bit altruistic, I did not see coming. I would have just like driven the fuck out of that place.
Well, because she's
Are
more
you really gonna help?
empathetic.
True, true. But like, what would
Yeah.
you do in that situation?
Oh,
If you got out
we're both
2 weeks
guys. We
being
would
in
have
a
definitely both got the fuck out of there. There'd be no reason to help because we're gonna protect ourselves. We're
yeah,
gone. We're gone. We
yeah.
have no empathy.
We're
We're
just piece of shit that we're not gonna give a
yeah.
fuck.
The only people that we're gonna protect or rescue are somebody that's blood related to her or like a friend. Would be the only reason. Not some stranger I don't know. You
Yeah,
know, when people get asked if you could hit this button and it would kill somebody that you don't know and you get a large sum of money, most people would say yes, I'd hit that button.
oh yeah, absolutely. Human psychology is so interesting because,
Mhm.
and I think that's what's on display here.
Yep.
Yeah. Especially when you look at AJ, who has no qualms in sabotaging the very person who
Yeah,
rescued him.
it's kind of wild. Like right when you think maybe he's finally, come to terms with he might have made a mistake and that he might have taken advantage of this woman, and then he becomes a shitlord, like in just in time.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's so against his type. He plays such an against his type character,
Hmm.
uh, because when you see him, you don't suspect that necessarily. But again, that's what appearances are for. Because when you look at Bill Skarsgård, you think, "Oh shit, this guy's probably a creep," because
Yep.
he's got an unnerving, unsettling face. And then you look at AJ Justin Long, and you're like, "Ah, this guy, he looks like a nice guy. He's got
Right.
a
He's harmless.
yeah, he has a pretty harmless demeanor."
Yeah.
But turns out he's not. He's an asshole. He's a douchebag.
Yeah.
He thinks he's in the clear, and he's a good guy who's made a mistake. But he's actually not.
No, he's an evil person that deserves everything that's happening to him.
Yeah, I mean, he too is preying on women, and
Mhm.
so is Frank.
Yep.
Obviously, Frank in a more
Literal
horrifying way.
sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Um,
the epitome of what a monster is.
yeah, yeah. I think there's some interesting, y- you know, like I said, commentary on these topics
Yeah.
that I think they get a bit pushed away because in the third act the film is a lot more action oriented and a lot
Mhm.
more like horror set piece and
Yep. It's
really going for the tropes that most horror movies are known for. But I do want to say I've noticed like a really recurring theme with a lot of these contemporary horror films that are based in a house or a single location where they tend to have, you know, an additional layer underground or a
okay, yeah.
basement. Or I watched Heretic not too far long ago,
Yeah, you're
and
telling me how good that is. That I'm really intrigued and I want to see it.
yeah, Heretic is, similar in the idea that, it's got there's more to a house than what you see. And even Don't
Mm.
Breathe, a lot of it takes place in when they're in the basement. That's when the tension is ratcheted up because this guy is
Yep.
a blind man. He can't see, but he has super strong senses, and he's hunting them down. And that's where like the tension
Wait,
is
is
at
Don't
its
Breathe a
height.
Marvel movie? Did Daredevil go
No,
evil? Is that what happened?
no, no, no. It's in
Oh, okay,
fact
okay, okay.
it's directed by Fede Alvarez, who did
Ooh, okay. The
directed
Substance?
Alien. No, not the
No,
Substance.
okay.
He did
All these
Alien.
French names are getting me confused.
Alien Romulus.
Okay.
But it stars this actor who's really Stephen Lang.
Okay.
Yeah, it stars Stephen Lang, and yeah, he's great in it as the antagonist. He plays a blind man who's obviously, yeah, he's also a rapist. But some interesting recurring themes that I've noticed
Okay.
in recent horror films that explore that. And I think most of them are like indies who don't have a budget, but they find clever ways to like make the most of
Mhm.
the production design. And that's where technically, the camera, the way they shot the film is
Yep.
good. Especially the scenes in the tunnel are really claustrophobic.
Yep.
Uh,
I agree.
and I was really surprised to learn that the mother was not CGI. It was actually played by a real actor
Yep.
in costume and makeup. And yeah, it
Yeah,
was it
there
was
was an interview where the guy that was in the monster outfit, he was Justin Long was doing such a good performance that he was like after the scene was over, he's like, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" Which I'm
that
pretty sure
that
there was something
room
like
with the
that with Bill
TV.
Skarsgård
That
as
room.
it.
What do you think of that room with the TV with the breastfeeding video playing?
Was really funny. No, that's straight out of my nightmares is what that is. Just anything to do with like that the mother breastfeeding or like that nipple
Oh,
with the hair, like it makes me squirm. And that's a good thing because a lot of modern day horror movies are Blumhouse fart machine movies and they just shovel them out. They got Smile, Smile 2, Electric Boogaloo, they got Megan with the 3. You got all these movies that they're for these 14-year-olds that can't see these movies yet and they make them PG-13 so they can. And then you get something like one of these indie horror movies that are actually genuinely scary, and they, like that first Insidious movie, like it's like a little atmospheric, a little
Barbarian
creepy.
though.
Yeah.
Barbarian though. Once the reveal is made, I didn't find it scary.
Well,
I
yeah,
just,
it's just like unnerving, like in that first 40 minutes. Yeah.
yeah. The compared to the tension in the first act, yeah.
Yeah, like
Once the reveal is made,
I definitely not. I don't think I would necessarily scared of like the mother monster, but it definitely um unnerved me. It made me feel
I mean,
uncomfortable.
you're seeing the door close, and you're wondering, is this supernatural?
Right.
How's like
Is there a man in the walls?
is the house an entity of itself? Is there
Right.
something inside that's controlling it? Obviously you don't know that. And
Right.
the fact that you don't know that and you can't really tell is what makes it horrifying.
Mhm.
Uh, I just wish like there was a bit more towards the end. That's the only thing
Okay.
I gripe with. But apart from that, I enjoyed the performances. I thought Georgina Campbell was also, she put in a good performance.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I
not
agree.
an easy role to play. Really harrowing. And I think, yeah, the sound was also pretty good. S-
Mm-hmm.
You know, soundtrack did the job.
Mm-hmm. They really unnerved me.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to say about Barbarian, or would you like to roll into rating?
Yeah, we can go to ratings.
Okay. Would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. Uh, I think like if I had to like give you a final thought, um, I think the film overall had some really interesting themes and interesting things to say about patriarchy and the society of patriarchy today. It's showing you how AJ and Frank are both no different. They both prey on women with no regards to their humanity. They both are barbarians, and that does elevate it slightly from being a generic slasher creature horror film for me. I think that the tension and the misdirection in the first act is genius. The casting of Bill Skarsgård as sort of you know, just a plant, and then the rug is pulled under you is also really clever. For me, like I just feel like the third reveal with the flashback to Frank uh, kind of breaks you out of the mood that you're in, because then it's like again breaking the pacing of the narrative. And then in the final 20 minutes, I just thought like the whole ending was like kind of goofy. I just wish it had like a tighter ending, a bit more horrifying, because then once the reveals are made, you kind of like, you just see things happen. I wasn't particularly, you know, I could surprisingly, I thought the first act was more unpredictable than the third act. So, yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10. I really enjoyed this film. I think it's a clever horror movie. I'm really impressed by the quality and what they achieved in its budget. Um, and yeah, I would recommend this film to people.
Awesome. Uh, I recommended this film to you, and I think Barbarian's a great horror film. It has great atmosphere. Doesn't rely on dumb things like jump scares, loud sounds. Definitely in that first 40 minutes, it makes you really feel uncomfortable because every guy has been in a situation when you're trying to make a woman feel more comfortable, and there's only so much you can do. Um, every year,
It's so
Blumhouse
real.
puts
It's
out.
so real, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Every year, Blumhouse puts out, like 50 movies or whatever. I know it's not that many, but they are like nowhere near this level of horror. Um, uh, I wish more indie horror directors were allowed to just do what they need to do and not have the committee make the movie. Um, you don't necessarily have to have, $300 million to make a great horror movie. You could barely see the budget in this film. Like that's how well it was made. Um, I would give it a bonus point because of no jump scares. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 8 out of 10. Uh, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think that average is just around 8, I guess.
Mhm.
But yeah, I agree with your sentiments. I think we need to see more quality indie horror films, less
Mhm.
Blumhouse trash. Uh, and yeah, I just think that there's a lot that you can achieve even with with a smaller budget. And let's not, obviously, you know, let's not ignore the fact that some of the greatest horror films are the ones that are shot in minuscule budgets. I mean, one of your favorite horror movies of all time that we
Mhm.
reviewed was barely shot on any budget. The
Yeah,
first Saw
Paranormal
film.
Activity. No, I'm fucking around. It's Saw. Saw.
What's your gripe with that?
Paranormal Activity. Nothing happens. That's my gripe with that.
I
It's
don't
not
remember
like
watching.
that's why. That's why you don't remember it because it was memorable because it was I think it was, I don't know the exact time, but I turned it off because nothing happens. It's just like static camera, and then like,
Cilantro.
and then you start to like think something moved, but nothing actually moved. And it's a bunch of teenagers in a movie theater all staring at their phones, taking selfies, doing Instagrams. Like, horror can be done well. It can also be done as a shovelware piece of shit sequel bait. You know,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
is what
I'm
it
so
is.
glad there was a post-credit scene
Yep,
with
and you get a
the, I don't know.
stinger into Barbarian 2. Did you see that? When Nick Fury came in?
let's not undermine everything we do with Marvel.
Oh, I love
Let's pretend
Marvel.
like they don't. Let's pretend like they don't exist, because
Please,
I don't
Disney,
want to be.
send me a
I don't want to
check.
be. I
I'm
don't
a
want to be
shill.
having conversations on every film with Marvel being mentioned from now onwards, unless it's literally the thing we're
A
talking
Marvel
about.
movie. Okay, I agree.
Yeah, I think we're shallowing our criticism if we do that.
Okay, sure.
But no,
Do-
Barbarian is great. I think more people should check it out for sure.
I agree. You want to wrap this up?
Sure thing. Yeah. Well,
All right.
that's it from us. We'll see you for our next recommendation, which will be a surprise.
Ooh, surprise. All right. See you, Space Cowboy.
See ya.